pandemic, which is the way to cushion the economic hardship that is imposed by the pandemic on everybody. I believe you agree with me that these topics will be very highly in demand, because clearly the country is struggling to get the economy back on its feet. I would also like to welcome our participants for today, webinar 3.2, which I will promise you is going to be a very productive webinar because of the caliber of the people we have as the guest speakers for today. We hope that you are going to enjoy the webinar, and we hope that you are going to participate, because there is an option for you to ask questions after the presentations by the speaker. You can also drop your questions in the question and answer session, and we hope that it's going to be a very vibrant and productive webinar. This webinar is just the second of many we are going to do within the year, because of the rapid grant that we got to conduct a series of webinars and other programs relating to the pandemic. So you are welcome to this webinar, and we hope that we are going to be seeing you in our subsequent webinars. Thank you very much, and enjoy.
Thank you very much, the chairman of the webinar committee, for that very wonderful opening address. So now the next item on the agenda is the introduction of the first speaker. The first speaker we have is Professor Othman, MK. So Professor Othman is a professor of agricultural engineering at Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. He is the immediate past executive director of the National Agricultural Extension and Research Licensing Services, NAERLLs, ABU Zaria. He participated in several research works in the last 3 decades. Professor Othman has more than 70 articles in reputable journals, proceedings, and has other applications. He is the editor-in-chief of the Nigerian Journal of Agricultural Extension. He is the chairman editorial board of Leptune Prime magazine, a monthly national news magazine based in Abuja. Professor Othman writes a weekly newspaper column titled Deep Thoughts in Blueprint. Deep Thoughts in Blueprint newspaper and 6 other online news media. He used to write articles as a columnist of the Leadership Friday named Breakthrough with Professor MK Othman. Professor Othman is presently an internal member of the Governing Council of Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, representing the University Senate. He has held several leadership positions, and currently he's a member of the board of the Centers and Institute representing the Governing Council. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to welcome on board Professor MK Othman, who is going to educate us on the topic, effective response strategies of the agricultural sector to COVID-19 induced health and economic consequences. Prof, you are welcome on board.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be here and be given the opportunity to make this presentation. Thank you very much. I cannot share my video because the video cannot be shared, as I said, that the host has stopped it, but I can share my screen. So am I free to go ahead and start, or is there anything else? Hello? Are you listening to me? Yeah.
I think you can go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, bye.
You're welcome.
Okay. So, okay, the title of this webinar, this paper is Effective Response. Sorry, I have to, okay, sorry. The screen is just, oh my God. Sorry, maybe I have to just start all over again, if you don't mind.
Yes, you can start from the beginning.
Yeah. I'm trying to remove the pictures that are covering my screen. Okay. These pictures have to be removed. Let me just see how to do it. The pictures just appeared and they're not going. Okay. More height. Okay, good. Thank you. So the title of the paper is Effective Response Strategy of the Agricultural Sector to COVID-19 Induced Health and Economic Consequences in Nigeria. So the two keywords here is the COVID-19 and the strategy that were adopted in the agricultural sector in this country. Although the title that was given to me, it was general, but I'm trying to limit it to Nigeria. Now, the presentation outline is given the introduction, background, impact of COVID-19 on agriculture and food security, and then the response strategy to COVID-19 pandemic, and the way forward. The goal of the paper is to analyze the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on agriculture and food security in Nigeria, and then the response strategies that were adopted by government and other stakeholders on this particular pandemic. Now, as a way of introduction, as we all know, Nigeria was amalgamated in 1914, and at that time, Nigeria was ruled from 2014 to 1960. And at the time that Nigeria got independence in 1960, the population was just about 43 million. And as at September 2019, the population was about 200,963,599. And as at yesterday, when I was writing this paper, the population was over 200 million. The rate of population increase over the last 50 years, hourly birth rate is about 850 babies, hourly death rate 280, so you have a surplus of about 570 people being born per hour and every hour in this country. So Nigeria, by the year 2040, Nigeria will be the third most populous country in the world. And of course, the country also is blessed with geographical area of about 91 million hectares. Unfortunately, life expectancy in Nigeria as of today is about 47.6 years, which is far below the global average of 71 years. And the literacy is surprisingly is about 59.6, and the GDP growth rate in Nigeria averaged 1.07% from 2010 to date. Now, this is a society that has very large population, very rapidly expanding population, and at the same time also has vast land that can allow cultivation of several agricultural commodities. So agriculture became the economic sector that employs about 70% of Nigerians. And of course, the potential and the people, you can imagine that if agriculture is done the way it should be done, it will actually not only make Nigeria become self-sufficient, but it will be able to, export large quantity of agricultural produce. But however, there are a lot of numerous challenges that are facing even before the COVID-19. The nation is not food secure. Farmers have to cope with scarce resources. Part of this, of course, the contribution of poverty reduction and adapt to change of climate and ecological conditions. Now, it is at this very stage that we had the issue of COVID-19 when our population was already over 200 million. That was increased from 43 million in 1960, which means that it was almost 5 times. So, and then there's also increasing urbanization and growth of per capita food consumption. The COVID-19 resulted in food increase and decrease in access to food. Of course, as we all know, agricultural activities are seasonal, time sensitive, and also is partial because of the time difference. I mean, location different because of the climate, and it also involves a lot of people. Now, like I mentioned, even before the COVID-19, there are a lot of problems of agriculture. Then now, what are those problems? As we all know, the pre-existing problems were decrease in cultivated area productivity, decrease in cultivated area, because the area that is being cultivated, most of these areas are accessible, that are very close to, roads, access to roads. So because of urbanization, the area is being reduced. Then similarly also the productivity, and that further also wasn't the national food insecurity. Then the issue of COVID-19. Now, one of the things that, of course, the challenges of agriculture during the COVID-19 is inability of farmers to mechanize their farming. Like I mentioned, this is also is free COVID-19 challenges. There's of extension personnel. As you may be aware, one of the major, key points that facilitates rapid agricultural, development is the issue of extension, because extension is actually, the method of taking knowledge from where it has been generated to where it can be used. So most of the countries that are actually making it is because they have a robust and very effective extension system. So that is very, very important, because as we all know, people are used to farming. Anybody can go into farming. Farming is an all-commerce business. But farming, to have increase of productivity, must be driven by knowledge. So inability of farmers to access reliable and timely information on proven agricultural technology has always been there. Inability of the nation to commercialize research results. You may be aware that Nigeria has about 17 agricultural research institutes. And all these agricultural research institutes are daily, developing new researches to address challenges of agriculture in this country. And why are those results? Then the difficulty to provide feedback to research institute and policymakers in agricultural sector. Because we have not been able to be using most of our research results, most of the technology we're importing, especially machineries and so on, then the few that actually we are using, there have not been feedback. Then there's also low quality standard of input. Here in this country, many people bring all kinds of things without, zero restriction, and coupled with the fact that the corruption has eroded this kind of restriction, because people can bring things and then bribe and say into the country. And then inadequate and inaccessible input. Now, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the pandemic had devastating effect on the world economy, as we all know. Africa and Nigeria depend majorly on subsistence agriculture for livelihoods and food security. The kind of agricultural system we operate in this country is what you call subsistence farming, which means that a small land by a farmer that is cultivating for food and maybe mainly they're not even producing for business. So that is one thing, because that also poses a challenge also when it comes to even issue of mechanization. The COVID-19 pandemic triggered negative shocks in the nation's food security because of the restriction, as we all know. There was lockdown almost everywhere, so people cannot move out. Those who have food to sell cannot go out to sell. Those who want to buy food cannot buy. So that really, triggered a negative shock in the nation food security. And over 60% of the Nigerian population was at risk of food insecurity during that period. Now, the COVID-19 crisis served as an opportunity for Nigeria to revive the agricultural sector. Truly, if you, as you must have been reading every time, that Nigeria, imports more than 1 billion naira worth of food on daily basis. This has been going on for very many years. So, and even those countries where Nigeria is importing the food, they were also being affected by COVID-19. So it will have been, an opportunity for the country to sit and say, okay, now that we have been depending on others because we feel we have money to buy, and the money is not, the food that we are going to, where we are going to buy is not there because of restriction. Can we now develop our, our agricultural sector? Well, that's one, issue that, was posed, but unfortunately, up to this moment, not too much has been done. Now, again, as we are aware of all the other things, the social distancing, self-isolation, and travel restriction, shortage of fertilizer, input, seed, agrochemicals, and so on and so forth, there are a lot of shortage. Most of the people who were really affected because were the farmers, and the farmers were, of course, at the poorest, level of the society. So they are the most vulnerable segment of the population. So Africa, Nigeria, just like Africa, over-reliance on the developed nation for development and economic prosperity were tested. So the COVID-19, while of course the negative effect was quite much high, but we should have actually seized the opportunity to really look at that our dependence on the developed countries is not really, something that can be sustainable, because this is something that had just come, and this is the problem we're facing. So importation of food from other countries was difficult, as those countries were equally affected by COVID-19. Now, it's not, I'm trying to share, it's not going. Sorry, I'm trying to share and the screen is not moving. Yeah, good, thank you. So what are those strategies that were adopted immediately? Because a lot of issues, you may recall, the COVID-19 came around April or May, March, April, and at March, in many towns, especially in the south, the rainy season already started. And by April, May, the rainy season was actually moving towards the north. So the question now is, what is the course of action to be adopted to mitigate the impact of COVID-19? Because there was really a serious threat to productivity, to even as you are aware, more than 80% of the food being produced in this country is mainly during the wet season, not during the dry season. The dry season contributes about just 20%. So, and that is the period that so many people go to the farm. Then similarly, the agricultural extension service, as I told you earlier, is the cardinal issue with major impact on productivity. But with the restriction of the movement that is caused by lockdown, then the extension services become, very, very, very ineffective. Already the extension service was ineffective, but then it actually aggravated. Then the massive development and use of ICT. That is when the ministry has to think out of the box. What do you do? There has to be, leverage on the use of ICT facilities, like, the Zoom meetings, the issue of National Farmers Helpline Center that was also being looked into, and then the video conferencing. And during the period, NRS and Federal Department of Agricultural Extension embarked on capacity building, because we felt since it was difficult to do the physical appearance when it comes to extension services. So the best way is to make use of virtual means of reaching out to the people. And it's true that in that year 2020, as part of the strategy, we trained about 75,000 extension personnel across the country. And then NL also and partners continue to sensitize, mobilize, and educate the teeming farming population on the issue of COVID-19. Then there was also, it goes also hand in hand with the massive campaign and training on preventive measures against COVID-19 and how farmers can stay safe. Now, like I mentioned, the National Farmers Helpline Center was also put to use. But of course, as much as it was going, because there were lack of awareness, so many people could not actually, get the services. And as my personal contribution, being a writer, I actually even wrote articles during that period. The first one I wrote was "Relax the Lockdown and Learn to Live with COVID-19," which was published by Blueprint and other newspapers. And then I also wrote another one, "Cause and Consequences of COVID-19 in Nigeria," and it was published last year. So these are the things, and some of these things, this is another one that I also wrote, "COVID-19 Reality, Conspiracy Theory, and Confusion." And the key points in those articles was, one, the millions of Nigerians, as we all know, live by daily income. They come out on daily basis to earn a living. The costs of lockdown were enormous. Closure of school, hospitals, industry, everything, airliners and transportation and so on. And then the decline, the COVID-19 declined GDP by 38%. This was the result of a research that was conducted by IFRI in Nigeria in May 2020. And that also increased the rate of poverty by 15% and added about 30 million people below the poverty line. That is as around maybe July. The percent of GDP decline amounted to about $16 billion, which at that time was about 5.7 trillion. And the CBN figures revealed that 3.5 billion has so far been spent on COVID-19 and COVID-related matters over that. That is within the first 10 months of the lockdown. And this is what the government was able to spend, to curtail the problems of the COVID-19. Now, sorry, I'm trying to. Now, the key point of my recommendation on those articles is, one, there are 7 of them. There has to be a campaign. You have to, mount campaign and sensitize people about the effect of COVID-19 and how to also, prevent being infected. And then use of local languages. And most of the campaign, as you are aware, they were using, English language. But I also advocated that a local language, those things should be translated into local language. And then I also recommended that there should be daily communication with Nigerian by NCDC, which later I think was also adopted, and up to this moment, it's ongoing. There's also the increase in capacity to trace, track, and test all suspected COVID-19 cases. These were some of the recommendations I made in that article. And then increased number of isolation centers, compulsory wearing of masks outdoors, and provision for hand washing facilities, hand sanitizer, and temperature guns at entry points. Compulsory observance of social and physical distances of individuals must be imposed. So those are the things. Now, those are the my personal contribution as a writer, as an public writing on public opinion or public issues. But now coming to look at the efforts or the strategy that was adopted by government, like I mentioned, there was a concerted effort between Federal Ministry of Agriculture and some of the agencies. So the FMAT developed a national mitigation plan to against the COVID-19 on agriculture and domestic food supply. They were categorized into short, medium, and long-term plans. The short was to relax the movement of inputs and food items. So I remember the Honorable Minister then, had to, seek, approval from the presidency that that all food items and inputs should be allowed to be moved from one place to another, because, like I mentioned, it came at a time when the wet season is just about starting. Then the medium and long-term plans was also put in place. There was a policy, what we call native, and then the extension policy. These are two major policies that at that period were initiated to be, a strategy for medium and long-term plans. And then sustainable agricultural development strategy, that policy is called Agricultural Technology and Innovation Plan, NATIV 2020-2023. NATIV has several strategic components. One was agricultural knowledge creation and transfer. And like I mentioned, there are 17 research institutes that are engaged in agricultural research every time. And we also have over 70 faculties of agriculture. And all these faculties of agriculture, they are, having a lot of agricultural research going on. So that means that a lot of knowledge are being created. But most of this knowledge that are being created through research are actually being on shelf, and there's need for that transfer. Then there's also, in that native, rural access to mechanization, comprehensive extension services, value addition, market development, sustainable funding, and synergy between the agencies. When we look at the native strategy component, especially when you talk about the knowledge creation, they are talking about establishment of agri-technology incubation centers. Because after the research, some of those, results that are actually very viable, there has to be some kind of incubation centers for training and then making use of such technology. Promotion of participatory technology development, promotion of problem-solving research, promotion of indigenous knowledge system for innovation, and promotion of sustainable land and water management practices. Then the other one is rural access to mechanization, promotion of motorized farm machineries and equipment, increased number of tractors and equipment through establishment of tractor hire service in all the 774 local governments. Then the same issue also with the extension, which is the component that is also in that native. One is the formulation of comprehensive national agriculture extension policy, enactment of agriculture extension trust fund, strengthening research extension farmer linkage system, promotion of private extensions system, especially what we call community-based advisor and adaptive village system as well. Support of intensive capacity building of extension personnel, network all the zonal and national farmers call centers. There is, even for a very long time, there's been what we call National Farmer Helpline Center. And that National Farmer Helpline Center is located here in Zaria. And there are about 5 other zonal centers that are supposed to be linked and networked so that farmers or anybody who wants to go into agriculture, all he needs is simply call a number and put his questions, and then he will get it on what to do and how to go about it. And then the same policy also, plan to deploy 300 extension workers between 2023 in all the state and FCT, and then improving the working condition and welfare of the extension personnel. 4 and 5 value addition and market development, formation and promotion of cooperative or value chain actors for capacity development, training program of value chain stakeholders to reduce post-harvest losses, and the promotion of cottage industry for value addition of commodities in selected areas. And then promotion of contract farming, promotion of value chain of export crops, promotion of the value chains of high value vegetables, promotion of value chains of poultry, catfish, aquaculture, and so on, establishing of one-stop farmer service center, and then establishing specialized crop processing centers. Then the other part, which is the component, which is sustainable funding and finance, enactment of agriculture trust fund. And this trust fund that we have been talking about was initiated and is still in the National Assembly. It has not been passed. And then there's also agriculture extension trust fund that is also there in the National Assembly. Well, I think it's yet to be in the National Assembly, but it has already been packaged. Perhaps maybe the ministry will take it to National Assembly. Then the provision of single-digit interest loan for agricultural enterprises. As of today, most of the commercial banks, charge as much as 2 digits, some even 20, 25. And as we all know, agriculture without knowledge, you can hardly make up to 20%, profit margin. So it will be very difficult for farmers to go to take loan, and then when they take it, they may not be able to pay. That is why you hear cases of loan defaulters among farmers, because of the fact that their increased productivity has not been able to allow them to pay back the loan. The reduction of credit transaction costs. Then there's also, the seventh component, which is synergy among the ADPs. Like I mentioned, we have 17 agricultural research institutes that are actually engaged in research activities. But one of the problems that we have is that there is no synergy and no coordination. That is why many are doing, some will do this and others will come and even repeat what others have been done. So that coordination and synergy need to be, brought in so that every research institute will know what others are doing, and then where possible, they have to work together to be able to, to achieve the desired results. So the issue of the extension services, it is a very important pillar that can promote agriculture at all times. And I think this, especially during the 2020, the then Minister of Agriculture tried to see that the extension policy come into play, because the extension as it's today, is under what we call agricultural development programs, which are, employees of states, while the coordination of extension at the federal level is from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, while those who actually are responsible for delivering the extension services at the grassroots level are the employees of state government. So there has not been proper coordination. So, and that is why most of state governments are actually, underfunding extension services. And as we all know, actually, agriculture, even the budget, like even this year, the contribution, the percentage of budget compared to the total percentage is less than 2%. And even though it was recommended that about 10% should be allocated to agriculture, but that has never been done in the last 30 years. So that means that even from the beginning, the funding has always been an issue. And then extension services, as we all know, involve movement. So that's always cost of logistics. So most of this, when they are underfunded, then there will be very poor extension services. So the policy's goal is to put in place a legislated, knowledge-based, pluralistic, participatory, demand-driven, market-oriented ICT-enabled agriculture extension system to accommodate all interests. And then the funding will actually be coming from both from the federal government, from state government, and then from local government. So that means that 30% of the proposed National Agricultural Development Fund, part of it should go into extension. Part of it should go into extension, and then the contribution, there will be a legislation that the federal government must provide about 5% of their budget to this to agriculture. That part of it will go into extension. Similarly, the states will go. So with this, there will be enough fund that will allow extension services to be implemented almost everywhere. And with proper implementation of extension services, then farmers will actually farm based on knowledge. Because like I mentioned, agriculture of today is driven by knowledge. In conclusion, the COVID-19 tested the resilience of Nigeria, and those shows that to mitigate the impact of the pandemic, Nigeria tried to declare agriculture as an emergency issue and provided all necessary intervention to address the emergency. So like I mentioned, during the period, there was that panic because almost everybody was looking at what is going to happen if nothing much is done to address the issue, with the lockdown. So it was like an emergency issue, and some of the necessary interventions were done. Then massive development of rural infrastructure was also one of the things that was thought of. But at the same time, these are things that cannot just happen immediately because there have to be a fund allocation to it. Then capacity building on sustainable agricultural practices, which, like I mentioned, we started with the ICT, but that also is something that requires a lot of planning. Agricultural inputs, increased agricultural lending. I have already talked about reduction in the interest rate that will allow most of these farmers to go and take loan, but not only taking the loan, but also need to have extension services so that it's not only an issue of fund, but issue of knowledge of how to make use of this fund. Then one of the recommendations is that as humanitarian support, short-term and medium plan for the period requires policy coordination. So all this, there's a need for policy coordination. A high-level engagement is needed to address these challenges with a view to creating enabling condition and institutional framework for implementing a viable, sustainable plan for the country. This plan requires about 50 billion naira for immediate humanitarian and short-term measures, while the medium-term plan is spread in, over 4 budget cycles. The need to implement both native and nutrition policy cannot be overemphasized, as the nation attainment to food security depends on these programs, among others. Unfortunately, up to this moment that we're talking, these policies have not come to play. They are yet to be implemented. But once they are adopted and implemented, I believe the issue of agricultural development in this country, will actually bear fruit. Thank you very much for listening to me. And thank you very much for the opportunity for me to make this presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Othman, for that very wonderful presentation. You really did justice to the topic you were giving, and we thank you for that. Before we go into question and answer, when Prof will attend to most of the questions from the participants, we have to load down the questions on the chat column or on the question and answer segment. We have to take the second speaker, and after that presentation, we now take the questions all together. So I'm going to introduce our second speaker as Mr. Niyi Adekanla. Yeah, Adekanla holds a Master's of Science degree in Economics from the Othman University, Ileife, Nigeria. He is currently an independent researcher at the Helpline Research Ventures in Nigeria. He also doubles as a project chair researcher with the University of KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. Prior to his current designation, he worked as a research assistant at the National Center for Technology Management Headquarters in Nigeria, where he was involved in many research projects and embarked on many research such as data analysis, entry collection, and then training. Other research experience to date comprises ongoing or joint research and then journal paper publications. So, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to welcome on board Mr. Niyi Adekanla, who is going to lecture us on strategic policies for mitigating COVID-19 induced economic hardships, the entrepreneurship and SME option. So, Mr. Niyi Adekanla, you are welcome on board. Over to you, sir. Hello, Mr. Lee. Hello, Mr. Niyi. Hello, Mr. Niyi. Hello, Mr. Lee.
Maybe unmute yourself, Mr. Niyi. Mute yourself.
Like you're having some technical problems. Mr. Niyi?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you can go ahead and make your presentation.
All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present this topic. Quickly, I'm going to move into the subject matter. And of course, I really want to try as much as possible to be within the timeline allotted to me. So quickly, I want to share my screen now. All right, so I'll be speaking to the topic strategic policies for mitigating COVID-19 induced economic hardships, the entrepreneurship and SMEs option. Now, to start with, I'm going to be running through this outline where we were from, that is the historical background to the SMEs and how that comes around it as a form of issues to deal with as far as Nigerian context is concerned. Then, of course, we're going to be delving into the main issues as far as Nigerian SME context is concerned. And lastly, I'm going to be mentioning or identifying some policy options or strategies suggested available or should be adopted by the government and, of course, every other stakeholder involved. So very quickly, the Nigerian trade system. Historically, long before now, we have our own identity when it comes to trading system as far as Nigeria is concerned. Even long before now, that there have been issues around the fact that the pyramid in Kaduna, the Granite pyramid in Kaduna, and the eastern, the ability, the skill and energy that is available for the eastern people in terms of business and trades. And of course, in the Southwest, we have our own entrepreneurship spirit already inherent in us. And of course, at the end of the day, all of this begin, there's a sort of metamorphosis, a sort of changing over the time in such a way that the education system beginning to becoming, to start changing our orientation. And how did that go? The education system as given to us by the British colonial masters dictate the fact that during the 1960s or early 1960s, or just before the independence rather, we discovered that the curriculum given to us majorly were situated around the fact that we are supposed to, we are more trained as administrative capacity than all of this began to happen, and at the same time, we discovered that most especially the baby boomers that were born, that were given birth as of that time, 1946 through to 1964 and the like, we discovered that as we move on, the environment, the social, cultural, and educational environment as a then would allow for that kind of orientation and approach to our national well-being, and most especially our economic status. So as we move on in the overall scheme of things, we discover that this could not help us in a way. There have been a whole lot of shocks and every ongoing all over the years. So, and I discovered that at each period of shock, made possible by both external and internally, by the dint of the fact that I just want to survive. So along the line, the classroom education could not afford us. The classroom education, the four-wall classroom education cannot afford us the amount of skills and capabilities needed to be able to cope with the overall scheme of things of entrepreneurship world. And more often than not, most businesses that we have were coming in terms of business entities, not enterprise. They are two different things. People just want to survive to say, I just want to cope with the economic circumstances, the prevailing economic circumstances. So what I'm establishing here is that when it comes to shock has come to stay. Shock has been before, and not only COVID-19 is the only shocks that we have. And as a result of that, there are a number of interventions by the government from 1986 Structural Adjustment Program on and on, following several different rounds of intervention by the government, till even the COVID-19 in 2020. So all of this come together. It's not because of the fact that there have never been interventions, but because of the fact that there have been some inherent systemic issues that is available in Nigeria that, whether we like it or not, our reaction, both from the policy angles, that is the supply side of the intervention, and the receiving end of the intervention. So there are so many things that have to be in place that have never been in place. So it is not because of the fact that COVID-19 as it were, the way it came, though it's a given. It is not because it should be something entirely new. It's called the whole world unaware, truly, but the truth of the matter is that the level of resilience across different economies, the fact people, different countries, even within Africa, they reacted differently. Because of time, I can't be mentioning different approaches of different economies to all of these shocks, to protecting their people. And more also, we discovered the fact that the social security system, to pushing the attendant possible problems that could emanate from these shocks, they are not strong enough, in fact, near to not present. So all of this come together, made COVID-19 to be something that every person, both old and the young, were trying to run away from, even more than the regular inflationary pressure, even more than the regular interest rate issue with financial banks, with the commercial banks, and all other problems that come with that has been fighting SMEs to survive. Now, the next thing, where we are currently, according to the World Bank Group studies, World Bank Group study, it suggested that there exists approximately 400 million SMEs. 400 million MSMEs across emerging economies. That is the year 2021. So which shows the fact that now, out of this 400 million, currently Nigeria has up to 41 million SMEs operating within our economy. And this establishes the fact that we already have about 10% of the total SMEs existing in Africa. So, and to now make the whole story interesting, we understand the fact that the collection of these SMEs across sectors also contributes to the employment, about 80% of the employment capability of the nation, and at the same time, about 50% of the GDP. It simply shows that this sector or this group of entities are not supposed, we can't gloss over them as far as issues are concerned. And that is the more reason what we are dealing here is very critical. Now, the truth of the matter is that it shows the fact that the problem is not the number of SMEs. It's not to reproduce or to recycle more SMEs as it were, only, but the quality of individuals handling the businesses. Typical of our nation here, majority of these micro businesses, of these businesses, SMEs, 80% of them happen to be micro businesses. If I'm going to say it in other words, that means one-man businesses. So which shows the fact that there is with the person's capability individually, development of the capability of the person, and that is what we have, which is still low as far as Nigerian Human Development Index is still low. System of the person, the education and the exposure of the person. The truth is, a business don't survive without the right knowledge, just as I think Prof mentioned something around that. So it is very essential for us to understand where we are coming from, what are the value systems in place, what are the inherent problems in the country, and that is what brings me to our context here. Like I mentioned earlier, we are saying that it is not because of the fact that the government has not been working. In fact, to be in all honesty, this is not a platform to say that, oh, government is not working. As a matter of fact, it's not about a dispensation. I mentioned historically that we had an identity, an enterprise identity over the time. We have what we are doing. We have what we could generate, income for the economy and for individual household. But the truth is, over the time, the series of destruction that has been happening in the polity, in the society globally, requires more than rejected, most especially from the supply side of the equation, that is from the government. A case in point is a number of organizations and parastatals and agencies that have been in place before now, even existing, talking about SMEDAN, talking about the NDE, National Directorate of Employment, National Poverty. Of course, in 2006 specifically, CBN also established a particular agency that is in charge of Entrepreneurship Development Center. It is called Entrepreneurship Development Center. It's in charge of training and retraining of entrepreneurs before any loan could be disbursed to them. But and of course, there is one in each geopolitical zone. Now, the question is that I emphatically I am saying it's not because the government has not been working, quote and unquote, because but much of the fact that we're in a complex system that if we are going to handle 41 million SMEs in Nigeria, we cannot be talking about having a unit of Entrepreneurship Development Center in one geopolitical zone across the nation. They can, no matter how large the capacity is, they cannot absorb them. And in the middle of the whole thing, there are so many things, there are so many people that will still come in, whether registered or not registered, into the program. They will want to indicate the fact that everybody is an entrepreneur. Like I mentioned earlier, there are two different things. So now, having said this, what are the issues on ground that have been affecting an average entrepreneur in Nigeria as far as the subject is concerned? Now, I'm going to talk about this in respect to two issues. Number one is this: the macro orientation to the problem and the micro orientation. The first thing is this: population growth. Like Prof mentioned earlier, very, very strategic. Population growth, most especially in the last account of it in 2006 by the National Population Commission, they projected that population growth has been growing about 2.3% over since 2006. Now, given that rate, by now, as at 2006, we're at about 170 million, and now we're talking about population growth of about 220 or thereabout, if not more than, because we don't have the exact figure. And this says nothing more than the fact that as we are growing, entrepreneurs are coming up. People are coming in to want to fight for either survival or relevance in the entrepreneurship zone. So it will keep increasing. So that's just the fact that the kind of policy framework, the kind of policy alternatives, the kind of policy options that must be floated to have a significant impact and coverage must be such that will factor all this into question. Now, the next thing is transportation system. And you agree with me that we have a lot of issues to deal with in this space. Thank God for now a number of states now that have been improving in terms of this when it comes to road transportation system, most especially in terms of road construction and all. Talking about Lagos State, talking about the part of North and some Eastern states now specifically. So they have been improving. But the truth is, what we have in the nation, the extent to which, if there is proper road linkage between cities, within cities, it will create greater output for this sector. It will increase output and with it. Another thing is security. Of course, we both would be able to attest to the fact that there's a lot for us to do together as a nation, and of course, from the view. Now, another thing is inflationary pressure. This is, in fact, I was, jokingly, I was just thinking about something earlier. I bought, when I was in part one, I can remember that about, of course, I remember that I bought something, but that was, I used to like oat and all that. And I discovered that when I bought that thing, when I used to go to the market, I used to buy it at the rate of 190 naira. And you know, just last week or so, we wanted to buy groceries at the supermarket, and I discovered that when we got to the supermarket, and I looked at the receipt given to me at the counter, and I discovered that on it written 1,000 naira, from 190 naira to 1,000 naira. Now, the truth of the matter is that it is not a news again to say that inflationary pressure has been a huge problem to our SME as a sector, to SME as a sector, as it were. The case in point is the fact that currently we are talking about 2 digits inflationary index, 15.3% as at the last check in 2022, that was as of January. Now, all of these things to make money to an average SME is just saying that the amount I was buying yet another tool to sew a cloth to sell in the market has doubled. And here we are, an average fashion designer. How many people would want to, most especially during the COVID-19 period, will say that people don't usually go out, and that means that automatically that person saying as a fashion designer is already in trouble because of the fact that having understood the fact that the material is already getting costly, people are also not patronizing. So these are issues that are coming in. Then the interest rate by the commercial banks. Now, the truth is the risk evaluation process of the financial bank is becoming more cumbersome because of the fact that SMEs have, most of them, no record, financial statements, no financial record, no collateral, and so many other issues. And the truth is, commercial banks are also in the business to make profit. In fact, an average commercial bank would rather love to disburse loan to a church or a mosque to build yet another mosque or another church than giving an SME because of the risk at stake. So based on all these factors and so many other factors, macro-wise, we have so many things to take care of as problems facing our entrepreneurs. Last, and the other side to this is the micro aspect to this. Loan default. That was a case in point by the Bank of Industry. There was a loan disbursed since 2016 till recently, about 174 billion naira. It was discovered that over the time, to farmers specifically, over the time, some farmers just chose not to repay the loans. Why? You know, one of them made a statement in one of the reports that I read. He said, since Nigeria has been born in this nation, I had never eaten the cake of democracy or national cake. And so if we are giving me this, automatically forget about it, I'm going to take it, I'm not going to return it. It is part of what I'm going to eat out of Nigeria, of national cake. There are cases of trader money that we have had. People would take money and they will not collect it. Now, the truth is that the point here is that this is not coming from the government. Government made the loans available, but here we got people that are supposed to be the beneficiary, collect your own and return it. They are not doing it. Why? Now, I'm still going into that area very soon. Now, poor record keeping or accounting statement. I mentioned that structure. That I said emphatically that there is a difference between I am a business owner and I am an entrepreneur. More often than not, the strict difference is this. One wants to do the business for survival. The other one wants to do the business to leave a legacy. In Nigeria, it is very common that everybody just wants to be on the road, take up any other available business opportunity and venture into it, whether there is enough knowledge. And like I always say, you see, it is not about the capital that is expected to drive a business at the start of the business. No, it is not capital first. The knowledge required, proper investigation, ability to assess your environment, and every other thing that comes with it, those are the things that make the structure. A business is meant to grow before you can begin to talk about expansion. That's why you will see that an average bank will not say that you just want to give or disburse a loan to yet another SME that just starting just in a year. You will hear SME that just started in less than either for legacy or for lifestyle. You just want to establish a lifestyle. That's why you are into business. Then literacy rate among these people, I've mentioned something like that. So quickly, I'm moving to the next, the final stage. Yeah, I'm rounding up. The policy strategies or the policy options that I want to recommend now is this. The first thing is we want to expand our program coverage. like I said, the problem is not the absence of these programs. I must be sincere with you, for someone to sit down and design an applicable program for a particular unit in this nation is not easy. So it will be unfair of me to stand here and say that whatever program that have been disbursed by these good heads at whatever capacity, as they are not good enough. But the system and people that are involved, the stakeholders, the problem, the issue. So I would suggest that there should be an expansion of program coverage. A case whereby you were talking about a program covered 5,000 people out of about 45 million SMEs. That is unfair. Even if it is effective, it will be a very minimal. It will have a very minimal overall effect at the end of the day. So we have to learn how to expand. And how do we go about that? Clustering system. Clustering system. Now, what I mean by clustering system is this. There has been a series of establishments taking care of SMEs at different capacities in the nation. I would believe that we should begin to look at how to segmentalize into different trade systems and different skills. The set of programs that should be for micro businesses should not be the same set of business for medium-sized businesses. They shouldn't be competing, because if you disburse a loan of 10,000 to a micro to yet another sole trader at Paja in Lagos, it will appreciate it more than someone who is an average transport fare or an average fare to go to the office per day is about running to about 2,000, and in a week is going to 10,000 naira. So automatically you had only given him 10,000 naira for fear, not for business expansion. And so the clustering system should look at these distinctions across board. Look at them in terms of scale. Let's divide them. Two, in terms of location, we should approach this contextually. If you are saying in a region we have only one entrepreneurship development center in a particular region, we're saying not a state, in a region. Since you're in the geopolitical zone, something is not so tallying in there. So the point is that let's engage subnational governments. And okay, before I move to that, so let's have more industrial parks. Industrial parks in the sense that we have clusters of businesses doing similar things. They have themselves, thank God for technology, they have themselves in a particular database, in a working dynamic website where they will all be relational, a chatting system where people could come, most especially through the instrument of their associations. There is practically any business entity or business group in this nation that don't have an association, even as funny as those that are picking stuffs on the road, scavengers. So if we have that, let's know who answers to something when something is not working. So in this cluster, who is in charge? What do? We educate them on the use of this. Then I move on. I might not be able to mention, touch base on all the, because of time, touch base on all the options, but as time goes on during conversation, I can mention them. So the next thing is the subnational government involvement. Please, let's involve the states, let's involve the local government. These are closer to the grassroots more than anyone at the federal, at the center. So let's involve them. Let's involve social entrepreneurs. Social entrepreneurs, let's involve people that are willing to do this willingly without necessarily expecting profit per se. They empower people to do more. I will mention some examples if time permits later. So again, increase private entities' involvement with thorough monitoring mechanisms. I think that is clear enough. Through entrepreneurship, I mentioned that cooperative societies. Banks should increase cooperation with associations, unions in disbursing loans. It is very likely that some individual SMEs might not have the required collateral, but through the association to get the loan and monitor the loan disbursement and usage after series of capacity development. Then the next thing is school curriculum. This I can never overemphasize. School curriculum should be completely revamped. When I say completely, I am saying that, of course, in 2015-16, the federal government introduced entrepreneurship into the curriculum of the universities. That is a very good initiative. But the truth is, like I think Egbetokun et al. Found out in one of their books, one of their articles. Of course, I also wrote something related to that. Now, adoption of this, if we did. That should do this, they should only make it
Hello?
I think we lost Mr. Niyi. Can Dr. Franklin just take over?
Yeah, hello, Lee.
I think his time is up, so maybe we should, we can just start with questions for Professor Moderator. Over to you.
Okay. It's unfortunate the technical issues we're having that made Mr. Niyi to go off. So we thank the two speakers for the wonderful presentations they have made. It is now time for questions and answers. And since Mr. Niyi is here to reconnect with us, I think we have to start the questions with Professor Othman. So, Prof?
Yes. I'm ready for the questions. Yes. Thank you very much.
We have some questions for you.
Okay, go ahead.
I have to start from the first person that raised up his hand.
Yes,
That's Emmanuel Ezema.
Yes.
So, Emmanuel Ezema, you can ask your question, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Go ahead and ask the question, please.
Emmanuel Ezema. Where's Emmanuel Ezema? He raised his hand. Okay, if Emmanuel Ezema is no longer online, let's see another person that raised up his hand. I can see Justin Obinanaji. Please, can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Justin Obinanaji.
Hello.
Yes, you can ask your question.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Hello, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm fine, sir.
Good.
Sir, I have a question for Professor M.K. Othman.
Yes. Go on.
Yes, I love his presentation. In fact, he's one of my academic advisors.
Thank you.
So my question, though I got my question on the question and answer chat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask him, after his presentation, he made some kind of recommendations. So I was like trying to ask him how Nigerian government is doing their best to support farmers in Nigeria, at least to protect and prevent farmers against health crisis, which will in turn becomes a food crisis if nothing is done. So I was going through his recommendations, and I wanted to add that if Nigerian government can at least, establish health clinic in the rural areas, at least it will help most of our farmers to be safe. So I was just asking that question to know how he can be able to, like, through his writing and to his public presentations and publications, to get the attention of the Nigerian government on how to support Nigerian farmers, at least to protect the farmers against health crisis.
Okay, thank you very much, Obina. So, Prof, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a very interesting question. And as we all know, health and agriculture, you know, they go side by side. One has to be healthy to be able to go into agriculture or into anything. If you are not healthy, there's no way you can go into anything. Yeah, but I think just like agriculture, health and agriculture, they are on concurrent lists in our constitution. What it means is that federal government will be doing funding health and as well as agriculture, just like also education. Similarly, the state government will also be doing. So I know that there are many primary health centers across the country, but most of these primary health centers may not be effective because they may not have the adequate staff, manpower, and then the adequate manpower as well as facilities to be able to attend to people. And that is why many people are resorting to private clinics. As it is, I think it's a very good idea, but you see, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture has responsibility on the issue of agriculture. And this particular thing, it falls within the purview of Federal Ministry of Health. But definitely, if the existing primary health centers are to be equipped as well as, you know, have adequate manpower, then they should be able to serve. But I also want us to understand that if we have good food, health issue will also be reduced. Because once you have a good dieting, then you have less people going to hospital. But once you are not having good dieting, then you have more people going to hospital. Thank you very much, Niyi, for this question.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof, for answering that question. Can we now move to Chinwoke Ifeanyi? Please, can you make your question very snappy? Unmute yourself and ask your question. Chinwoke Ifeanyi.
Sorry, Doc. I noticed the speaker he has already attended to my question in the chat box, so there's no need.
Okay.
He has answered my question.
Thank you very much for saving our time.
Moderator, then there are questions in the chat box.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I've answered one, I think 1 or 2 in the chat boxes.
Yes,
Okay,
Prof has answered some of the questions in the chat.
Yeah.
I think we have another person there, Samson Olali. Please, can you ask your question and make it very snappy? Samson Olali,
thank you very
please,
much for this opportunity. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for your presentation, Professor MK Othman, on the effective response strategies of the agriculture to COVID-19. I'm puzzled about this question. With the recent rice pyramid demonstrated by the Nigerian government, I thought that will be one of the effective response strategies of the agricultural sector to mitigate COVID-19 effect on Nigeria. But during the COVID-19 crisis, bag of rice was sold around 28,000 naira. As we speak today now, we still buy that bag of rice at the same rate of 28,000 naira and 29,000 naira. What is the effect of the recent rice pyramid demonstrated by the Nigerian government? Thank you very much. Okay,
thank you very much. I think this question is very timely because just last week, I wrote an article in my column, blueprint of 2023, Wednesday, last week, 23rd February. And the title is Rice Pyramid in Nigeria and Matters Arises. That is, it's at the back page. When you check online, MK Othman and Rice Pyramid in Nigeria and Matters Arises, you get the article. But then let me answer your question. You see, in the article I said rice pyramid on any other pyramid, whether it is groundnut or anything, is not part of performance indicator for productivity. So it was just a political, indicator to show that there is rice, but actually it is not, because just imagine 100 million bags were brought, and these 100 million bags that were brought to Abuja, if 200 million people are to eat 100 million bags, 1 million bags, that means there's 1 bag to 200 people. 1 bag to 200 people will not be more than maybe 5 days. They will finish it. So what are the next 2 days or weeks? We have 57 weeks in a year. So what I'm trying to say is that rice pyramid is just an issue that showcasing, maybe trying to show that something has been done. But even when we had the rice pyramid in the 70s, it was only used as an aggregation center for taking those commodities to other countries so that they will process them and bring them back to us. So it was not something that was good. It was a symbol of underdevelopment, because like I mentioned, our farming system is subsistence. That means that farmers have small land, maybe less than 1 hectare, and they produce and so on. So when you aggregate this, because you want to transport it, that is why you have this pyramid. You are putting them to transport, not to show to people that they have produced. But in any case, the issue of the increase in prices is to do with the exchange rates, because even though the rice is being produced here, but some of the inputs that you may have to use, like fertilizer, herbicide, some of them have to be imported. And then when the value of naira compared to dollar that we are using to import has increased, definitely the price has to increase. Similarly, the labor cost. And at the same time, there are also cases of insecurity, during the period of our production. That also reduce, the labor, in some areas. And that reduction in the labor actually made the labor to increase. So many of us who are farmers knew that the labor price in 2021 was much, much higher than that of 2020 because of the shortage of labor. People were afraid to go to the farm. So when farmers have actually, produce, and then at high cost, then they want to sell it at the high cost.
Labor price has increased in 2021.
Hello? Okay, so another factor again that also increased that cost was because, of course, there was the ban on importation of rice. So only rice that is coming to this are rice that is being smuggled. So, and the quantity that is being smuggled is very small. So the amount of rice we are producing is not enough to feed the whole nation. So as a result, when there is shortage of supply and a high demand, the price is going to be increased. It's a very simple economic law. So that is actually what's happening. So, and you see, the prices of commodities continue to increase as we go away from the harvest season. So you expect more when there's more price during off season, but you have less, because I remember that the rice, price of rice started around 13,000 maybe for the paddy, and then as of today, the rice for the paddy is about 19,000. And by the time you process it and so on and so forth, you find that at the end of the day, 1 bag of rice will, it will cost you about 24,000. So the least you can sell it is 25 or 26, so that you'll be able to make a profit margin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. I think at this juncture, we have to take some questions from the panelists. So all the participants, if you have your question, please can you drop it on the chat? We are going to attend to all the questions. So I've seen that some people have already asked some questions in the Facebook platform. So the speakers will attend to all the questions. So now we take questions from the panelists. So our first question is going to Mr. Niyi Adekanla. Niyi, I hope you are online.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, my first question goes to you, and it says, what role is your organization playing to assist potential entrepreneurs secure takeoff funds or seed grants to enable them kickstart their own SMEs?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. Yes, in relation to what the role we play, and of course, based on what we do, of course, we have been partnering with some organizations, specifically Social Cooperative Improvement of Nigeria Initiative, that is SCMI. SCMI is an Ondo-based initiative who is in charge of empowering students in relation to SMEs orientation. By empowerment in this case, there are 3 different modules that we
Hello, Lee.
them to different orientation programs. So they put them into different forms of crafts and trainings, in the sense that, for example, based on their interest, if you are interested in tailoring or fashion designing, what they do is that they engage them and they invite people that are professional in this area, bring them over, train those people for a particular period of time before they can be, then now start talking about funding. So where do we come in? What we do basically is that, one, we project their operations and other related organizations like them. So in the end of the day, there are occasions where we come in to understand what they are doing and also contribute in terms, probably sometimes in terms of funding and some other areas that will be relevant to them. For a case in point is when I wrote an article on youth entrepreneurship interest in, I think in 2020. So it was one of the part of the case study happened to be this organization where we wrote about what they are doing, but we just put it in the light of how youth entrepreneurship or early adoption of entrepreneurship could increase entrepreneurial interest at the end of the day. So that is part of what we do as our role in this sector.
Okay. Thank you so very much, Mr. Niyi Adekanla. So, Professor M.K. Othman.
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yeah, please, you have to reduce the time you will take to answer this question to 1 minute, please.
Okay.
And the question says, what roles are the various agricultural institutes in Nigeria playing to mitigate the economic effects of COVID-19 pandemic on Nigerians?
What are the various
roles?
Okay.
What roles are the various agricultural institutes in Nigeria playing to mitigate the economic effects of COVID-19 pandemic on Nigerians?
Okay, I think that was more or less the focus of the paper. One, like I mentioned, there was an adoption of use of virtual means to train agricultural extension personnel, and then there was also the issue of policy formulation, which includes how to look at agriculture holistically now and maybe in the future, whereby a policy for, legislative policy to actually, have a sustainable funding of agriculture was also adopted. And then the issue of extension services was also similarly addressed. Like I mentioned at the beginning of my lecture, that extension is the main pillar that actually increase agricultural productivity, because agriculture without knowledge you cannot actually get the desired goal. So, and that also was legislated, which is medium to long term. If it comes to see the light of the day, I strongly believe that the issue of agricultural problems will be addressed, and then they will be in the history.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prof. Mr. Niyi.
Okay, I'm with you.
Okay, please, just 30 seconds. How do you think Nigerian government should engage the youth post-NYSC in the area of capacity building for national development to cushion the economic effects posed by COVID-19 pandemic?
All right, thank you. Thank you for the question. What I would say precisely is the fact that, of course, level of people via the NYC as an institution. So during their youth service, they should be able to make so many, as much as possible, loans options, programs, empowerment programs specifically, not necessarily financial based. They should make them available to these people as much as possible. Then, and lastly, it shouldn't be when they graduate alone that all these programs should start, like the one I mentioned into university days. It is not only. In fact, they should start from the parents. There should be an awareness to the fact that an average Nigerian parent should start helping out children to know how to save for themselves. So that at the end of the day, saving culture will have been increased enough, though when you have your money, it increases and confidence into going to and taking up any risk as far as being an entrepreneur. So I think that all of these things should come into place, increase awareness to the students and increase awareness to the parents, and make all of this through the institutional framework that are available to the people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And then lastly, Professor M.K. Othman.
Yes.
I want you in 30 seconds to answer this question. Are there synergistic approaches undertaken by the health and agricultural sectors in Nigeria to ameliorate the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the health of the Nigerian populace?
Well, you like say you are very passive and talking, so I didn't catch what you are saying.
Are there synergistic approaches undertaken by
approaches?
Yes, undertaken by the health and agricultural sectors in Nigeria to ameliorate the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the health of the Nigerian populace.
So, okay, the idealistic approach.
Yes.
Well, like I mentioned, that synergistic. Yes. Okay. Yes. You know, really, there's you know, even in every community, you find that in a rural community, you have about 3 major people playing role. One is the health personnel, the teacher, and as well as extension personnel. So that means that these 3, they can work together, and once they are working together, because they are working with the community, they will be able to, you know, address the challenges of health as well as food, you know, in that community. So, luckily, all these 3, that is education, health, and agriculture, they are all in concurrently, and they are all employees of the state government when it comes to these rural communities. So, it is very natural that they can synergize and be able to render services to the community.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. And the last question goes to Mr. Niyi. Niyi, are you listening?
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay, given the Nigerian dependence on oil currently, what do you think should be done to reinvigorate the pre-oil boom entrepreneurship skills of Nigerians?
All right, thank you for that question. Now, to start with, before the oil boom, it is known that, of course, we are, like I said earlier, we have our entrepreneurship identity. Despite the fact that over the years, time had evolved, and the current requirement for successful entrepreneurial spirit this age requires that, 1, technology prowess of people should be increased. Government should find a means to help to establish incubation area centers, like I mentioned earlier, to help people to be exposed to how technological instruments or tools can be used in their businesses. Because the physical era of business success is fizzling out gradually. And average system Hello?
Yeah, hello?
Okay, so to round off that, it is very essential that the government should look at this social re-engineering of to open people to the fact that value should be the first thing to look at in establishing a business, even before financing should come into place. We should ensure that people are rightly empowered financially as well. We don't just have to throw money into the air. Let's ensure that right monitoring processes are in place for businesses, so that you see when the required conducive environment is made available for people to work. Nigerians are hard workers. They will work. People will, if you can solve better opportunities to work, it will definitely, you will definitely survive. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. At this juncture, I have to thank the speakers for answering the questions, and I have to assure the participants, those that have questions, please can you drop it on the chat or send it on through our Facebook platform. The speakers will attend to all your questions. So at this juncture, I have to call on the NYA President, Awa Ibrahim, to give the vote of thanks. Yeah, President, over to you. Awa Ibrahim. Dr. Awa Ibrahim.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you go ahead and make your vote and give a vote of thanks?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Kenechukwu, for moderating. We can see that the webinar was truly a very interesting one, starting from Professor MK Othman. So we are extremely happy on behalf of the Nigerian Young Academy. We are very happy for your delivery, and we are indeed very grateful for what
thank you very much. It's an opportunity for me to speak to all of you. Thank you very much.
Participate in the ongoing in one of our webinars. We are very grateful, and we can see we have learned a lot. So many questions from I checked through the Facebook. There are so many questions, especially for you. So many questions on the chat box, in the Q&A, almost everywhere. There are so many questions. It has been a very stimulating presentation, and we are indeed absolutely very grateful for that, sir. And we hope that next time when we knock on your door, you will be available for us, sir.
No problem. Thank you very much. You always be welcome.
And to Mr. Niyi, thank you so much, Mr. Niyi. I really like how you stimulated some of us from the entrepreneurship perspective. Truly, I learned a lot, and I can also see from the responses, from the questions, so many things have been asked, which are very topical, especially with regards to unemployment and entrepreneurship, and you have adequately answered it. And so on behalf of the academy, we are extremely grateful for the presentation, and we're also hoping that next time when we call on your door, you'll be available for us. Hopefully, maybe we'll come for some sort of even entrepreneurial training, so that you also coach NYA, so that we can also along that line. So thank you so much. I'm very grateful to the webinar committee. Thank you so much. The executive committee of the academy always extends its gratitude for all that you have been doing. You can see the first webinar was so excellent. You can see today we are also having another excellent one, truly. I actually even personally sent message to the webinar chairman that I'm so happy truly that the webinar is also very excellently delivered, very well coordinated today. So we are also very grateful to all members of the committee. Now to all NYA members, thank you so much for your participation. I can see most of us are writing MNYA, and of course we are also taking note, and we are taking due attendance as the tradition demands. So we are also very grateful. Now to the attendees, without you, we are nowhere. Truly, we are doing this largely for the attendees, and we are very grateful. Your questions and specifically the questions you raise are those things that let us know that whether you are making something that is impactful or not. And from your responses, clearly we can see that we are making some impact, and we truly and sincerely thank you for that. Like I said, without you, we are nowhere. The webinar is just useless. So your participation means a lot, a whole lot to the academy, and we are indeed very, very grateful. So one thing I would just want to add is that to the attendees also, please, some of the questions are not fully answered. Obviously, due to time constraint, we could not address all of them. But what we did in the last webinar is what we'll apply also in this webinar. What we'll do is to now collate all your questions. The questions will be answered by the respective speakers, and subsequently, we are going to send emails to all of us. All questions will be copied to everyone that have participated in the webinar, so that we all see the questions that are unanswered, and we also see the responses that are received from the respective presenters. So we also thank you for that. We are going to do that hopefully in the next 1 week. We will collect all the questions, give the speakers to respond, and then we will now send a bulk mail to all of us. Thank you so much for that. Now, lastly, to the COVID-19 Rapid Grant Fund, who have been the funds have been very supportive for us to be organizing some of these webinars. Thank you. We thank the sponsors, and we thank them, and we are going to be doing our best to ensure that this most of the mandates of the grant have been delivered. And this webinar is actually one of them. So by and large, I would say thank you so much. We are grateful to everybody, and I say thank you and God bless. Dr. Kenechukwu, you can take over. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, the NYA president, for that vote of thanks. And at this juncture, I have to thank everyone for making it to this NYA webinar 3.2. And we hope that the next time we call on you, that you are going to come and then listen to the various webinars we'll be hosting on a monthly basis. Thank you very much, and may God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay,
bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Moderator.
Bye-bye.
Thank
you.
President.
Thank you very much.
Committee members. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Dr. Anjoni, thank you.
Thank you. You're most welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, well done,
Mr.
sir.
President,
Thank you
very
very
much.
Dr. Isa, Dr. Franklin.
Well
Thank
done,
you all.
Mr. President.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma.
All right, thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good to see
Dr.
your
Anjoni,
faces.
good to see you.
Dr. Gwaladobi, thank you, ma. Thank you all.
Thank you
Wow.
all to members.
My president,
Thank
thank
you
you,
all.
as usual.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We are indeed very grateful.
That was a great one. Thank you very much,
Moderator,
Mr.
thank
It was
President.
a great one. We are grateful.
Yeah, Dr. Isa, thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Anjoni, good to see you, sir.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you, sir. Bye.
Animation speaking. Well done. Well done. Mr. President, good to see you, sir.
Okay, greetings, sir.
Well done, sir. And thanks for
Thank
the other
you
day.
so much.
My president is looking younger.
Oh, really?
Yes, so
Yeah, so I'm so happy to hear that.
Great. Yeah, that's good.
Thank
Well
you.
done,
So
sir.
happy to hear that. Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Dr.
Sajua.
Franklin.
Have a nice day.
Well done, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir. Dr. Niyi. Oh, he has gone.